An actress takes on Apple, the search for thousands of missing students, and our picks for Hero or Zero of the Week. All coming up next on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Talent.
Ready, camera.
And
record.
cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we take a look at some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. And right here in sunny Los Angeles, we're joined by the columnist for the Washington Times. You can get her online at WashingtonTimes.com, Tammy Bruce. And now it's time to go to the top of the rundown. And Michelle, you got the short straw.
At the top of my rundown, actress Kirsten Dunst takes a bite out of Apple's iCloud over the new-to-celebrity photo leak. Dunst is the first celeb to criticize Apple after pics of her and other actresses were posted online. Take a look at the tweet she sent out. Thank you, iCloud. She's obviously calling iCloud a piece of you-know-what. Apple says hackers targeted celebrity accounts, not iCloud systems. They did this by tricking users into getting their passwords and usernames to break into an account or repeatedly guessing thousands of passwords in hopes of finding the right one. Other celebrities who were hacked include Jennifer Lawrence and Ariana Grande, just to name a few. So, there's a lot of talk about what all these pictures mean. People are trying to analyze the situation. Do you guys think that this is Apple's fault, or is it the fault of people who take pictures and willingly leave it on their cell phones and upload it to iCloud? Who should be blamed in all this?
Well, here's the thing, and this is something that's not only true for big corporations, but it's true, we learned, for the government as well, that hackers and teenagers in their basements sometimes move faster than corporations or the government. We saw it with the NSA situation. We saw it with what happened with WikiLeaks. We saw it here with Apple. We saw it with Target when Target's system was compromised. And unfortunately, look, technology's made our lives better in many ways, immeasurable ways. But unfortunately, one of the ways that it's made our lives worse is it leaves us open for bad guys to do bad things to us in ways that weren't imaginable 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, look, and we've had to talk sometimes before about whether or not it's smart for people to take naked pictures of themselves. Privacy issue is one thing, and another thing entirely for you to, for some reason, decide to take a personal naked picture of yourself and send it up into the cloud, or to not think twice about doing it. The equivalent would be like if you took a Polaroid before and had a number of copies made and then just threw the copies out of your window as you're driving in the car in your town. You can't then get mad if people pick it up and look at it or want to find it. We also have to realize that, gosh, it's not unusual for celebrities to want to have the naked pictures of themselves revealed, or to have the secret sex tape that's not really secret at all. So on part of this, I think we might be played for a young woman like Kirsten Dunst and these other girls. Look, if you don't want everybody to see you naked, don't take naked pictures of yourselves. And I think every one of those young women, well, except for perhaps for Jennifer Lawrence, has already appeared nude in film. So I'm having, and as a feminist, I'm having a little bit of a difficult time having women proclaim themselves as victims when they've made choices, stupid choices, that anyone at this point in the 21st century should know that this is going to happen. That's it.
I don't know about you, Michelle, but I don't think this is a career killer anymore. I think this is a blip on the screen.
No, it's not. I don't think so at all. I think, if anything, it's probably good publicity for some of these actresses. There is a list. I mean, it's not just Jennifer Lawrence. There's like 30 women who are on this list who I think are getting a lot of publicity. I didn't know many of the people on the list that now I do know, because they're one of those people who are on the list, and you Google them and find out who they are about. So I think it's actually boosting some of the people's careers.
Well, and look, and you can be like, was the last time this happened to somebody who doesn't do stupid things, at least personally, George W. Bush. What did we find out about George W. Bush? He's a great painter. The most we saw of him was his own painting of his legs in the bathtub. That's fabulous.
But if he paints some nudes, we know we're going to get those images.
Totally.
All right, now it's time to move to the top of my rundown, where MSNBC's Joe Scarborough lashes out at European and Middle Eastern nations for not responding to ISIS in Russia. Let's go ahead and take a listen, since I know, based on the ratings, you didn't see it the first time.
And I support the president
trying to get Arab nations to fight with us side by side, trying to get European nations. I'm sick and tired of Europeans sitting back and doing nothing, turning the other cheek as Vladimir Putin kicks him in the face time and time again because of money. And in this case, guess what? Iraq, it's not our problem. This ain't 2003, it's 2014. Europe, this is your problem too. It's a Middle East problem. More Muslims are going to be killed by ISIS than Westerners. So if you guys are sitting back waiting for us to carry your water again just so you can bitch and moan because you don't like how we carry your water when we try to keep you safe, you know what? You got another thing coming. And just like the president talked about doing it in Libya, where he waited until the Arab League came, I think we need to let the world come to us and ask us to carry their water again.
You know, Michelle, there's a kernel of truth to what Joe Scarborough said there. And I'll tell you what irritates me more than just about anything in the world from Europe. It's their constant lecturing on us about what kind of military-industrial complex we have and how we're warmongering and how we're bloodthirsty and how we just want to go out and be the world's policeman. And we do this, and that keeps them safe. So that way they can spend all their money on their socialist programs, on their socialized medicine, in the case of England, and then they can turn around and wag their finger at us and say, you don't care about your people, you don't care about your constituents, you don't care about your citizens, because if you did, you'd spend money on health care like we do, when we're in fact spending money on the military to keep Western Europe safe. So, you know what? If they're not going to go in there and do their share in the Middle East, then at a minimum, they should be writing us a check, shouldn't they?
I agree with that part. Absolutely. They should be helping out. However, to say that this is not our problem, it absolutely is our problem. When you have 2 Americans who have been beheaded, that is our problem. They are at war with the West, and they are at war specifically with America. So it is our problem. I absolutely disagree with Joe Scarborough on it.
What about that? Should they write us a check if they're not going to get involved? Because this is their issue, too.
Yeah, Germany has already pledged at doing something amazing. Now, look, we have European nations who also have their hands tied because of rules that we established after World War II. Finally, Japan is saying they're going to establish a defense force, which they've never done before because they can't trust us anymore. Germany has pledged not just weaponry like firearms, but heavy machinery, tanks, to the Kurds. This is a major deal because Germany has pledged never since World War II to not send armaments around to any country. So now they're saying, okay, we're going to do that now. So they had been held back because of previous agreements. But let's be honest, look, Europe and the rest of the world does not have a great history with doing the right thing. Of course we'd love them to chime in. They've had a history of making bad decisions, of creating 2 world wars, of previous to that, massive destruction through imperial systems. So to think that Europe is going to do the right thing or demand that they do, I think is a little short-sighted. And so while it has never been fair, you know, we've tried isolationism. We tried it before World War I and World War II for these very reasons, that that's their job, that the war was their issue. We watched London get blitzed by the Germans because it was not our issue, because that was their problem. And yet, what happens is it eventually does come here. So, look, it's not fair. We are the greatest country on earth. It's one of the prices we have to pay.
But isn't, though, that's why we created NATO? To try to share the responsibility, to try to share the cost. And it seems like whenever there's an issue...
NATO requires leadership. And what we've got right now is a Ken doll in the White House. NATO and the UN requires leadership. These ideas are great. And then we put people at the top of them, including the United States. You can have a great country and a great idea, and if you have losers leading it, we're going to have a problem. You get, with Ronald Reagan, NATO was fabulous, right? If you put John Bolton as the head of the UN would be fabulous. But this comes down to individuals. In order to have NATO be strong, we've got to get rid of Barack Obama.
Quick question before we move on. Who's worse at their job, John Kerry or Eric Holder? I think Kerry might be a bigger turkey
Well,
than
Eric Holder is doing his job as he sees it.
Yeah.
John Kerry, what was he doing as all of this was unfolding? He was like, what was this, like kiteboarding in Massachusetts for Labor Day. So look, Eric Holder's working, even though we don't like what he's doing. John Kerry is still vacationing just like the president.
All right. On a related topic, we have Tammy's rundown.
Oh, well, there you go. Where are the so-called students? The Department of Homeland Security cannot find some 6,000 foreign nationals who entered the U.S. on student visas, overstayed their welcome, and essentially just vanished. This exploits a security gap that was supposed to be fixed after the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks. Since then, 26 student visa holders have been arrested in the U.S. on terror-related charges. Now, by the way, an airport worker in Minnesota, as I'm sure many of you have already heard, happens to be, of course, one of the ISIS terrorists. He was killed in battle. It's known that when he left the U.S. to join the terror group, authorities say 15 men and one woman left Minnesota to also fight with ISIS. This guy worked at the airport for Delta for a decade. Security clearances, access to airplanes. This is something we've all been worried about now for 13 years. There was this effort, the kind of political correct effort. There's no profiling. You pretty much anybody can get into the airport. So as they're still grabbing our crotches, we've got an ISIS fighter working there, but now fortunately he's dead. The question then becomes, what are these other students doing? How many other people who sympathize with ISIS are working at airports who have access to airplanes? And what are their security clearances? The question also has to be, we need to ask in our own government, how many Muslim Brotherhood supporters or associates are in the White House, are working with Congress, and are in the Washington, D.C. area? Because we're coming up to the September 11th anniversary. All of this news combined is very troublesome.
Well, it's not shocking. In Minnesota, there's a huge contingent of Somali immigrants. Let's not forget when the bridge collapsed there, and we were all lectured to by the race hustlers that we allowed the bridge to collapse because we're racist against the Somalis, and that's why we neglected the infrastructure there. Not all immigrants are equal. They aren't. If you come from a part of the world where terrorism is a problem, and we know that terrorism is a problem, I don't understand why we're taking a chance on any of them, when we're saying no to British doctors. After we've exhausted all the British doctors, after we've exhausted people from Germany or people from Japan or people from countries where we know that there's not an issue and they're educated and they can support themselves and they're not going to do us harm, they're going to contribute to society. After we've exhausted all of that, then okay, maybe we can talk about the Somalis. Well, but until then, I'm not interested.
The immigration issue, Michelle, it's based in the belief that everything that was happening in the world was happening because it was our fault. That if only people got to know us and came to see the lovely beautifulness of America, it would all stop. Clearly, with the retreat that Obama did, the increase in terrorism, everyone, including liberals, must admit now that the issue is not us, right? The issue is that theory, that craven, savage theory. But now we've got these missing students. One of the solutions would be, besides immigration, is to stop the student visa program until we make a determination about what's going on. Do you think that that's too extreme, Michelle, to just kind of end the student visa program until we get over this worldwide terror hump here?
I don't think so, and I don't think it's extreme either to, revoke the passports of a lot of these people who are in ISIS, who are Westerners, because many of them who are in ISIS are from the West. They're from England. They're from European countries. And European countries, people can just come here. They can just come here with a passport and stay here for 30 days. James Rosen, a reporter from Fox News, asked the State Department, have they taken away the passports or at least put them on the no-fly list, a lot of these Westerners in ISIS, and they said, we don't have a comment for that. We are not going to confirm or deny that. It seems as if they just want these open borders, and yet here we have this terrorist group that is bent on destroying America. It makes no sense at all. And I agree with you, John. Why go and get immigrants from Chechnya? Why go get immigrants from Somalia? Why not go get great immigrants who are doctors and are going to be here to support themselves and are not from terrorist areas?
It's like the NFL draft and we get first pick. And instead of taking the best player in the draft, we take the broken down, injured ones that are going to be a huge liability. Makes no sense. All right, now it's time to move on to Zero or Hero of the Week. This is where we pick a person or group for doing something very good or very bad. I'll go ahead and go first. My zero goes to radical Islamist groups in Libya for seizing a dozen commercial airliners. I guess you can also give part of this to John Kerry and Barack Obama. The planes were taken from the Tripoli International Airport just weeks before the 13th anniversary the 9/11 attacks. The fear, of course, is that the planes could be used in attacks across North Africa. You fill them up with explosives, they can turn into missiles, and I still can't figure out how we let this happen.
Well, I believe every African country now and Middle Eastern countries are refusing to accept Libyan flights because they're presuming they're going to be suicide bombing flights. So all those airports are closed to any Libyan flight. They've got several airports. We could have easily bombed the runways in those countries, but of course, once again, we didn't. Maybe we were on vacation and playing golf.
All right, Michelle, what do you have for us?
Okay, so my zero this week is a Pennsylvania groom. The groom, his brother, and a groomsman were arrested at a wedding reception. The groom's brother is a Pennsylvania state trooper. The groomsman is a member of the school board. The groom tried to force a 19-year-old pregnant waitress to do shots with him before he started getting grabby, and he started pouring alcohol down her throat. The fight was the top story on the local news that night. Here's a portion of the report.
The fight unfolded as the Williams wedding party was underway on the Gateway Clipper when an employee said the groom became handsy and he touched her several times along the side of her torso and upper hip area. And she claimed he tried to pour alcohol down her throat despite the fact she told him she was pregnant. The woman called her boyfriend, he arrived, and that started the violent encounter involving the Williams brothers and Taylor.
And the bride went the next morning to bail him out of jail.
No.
So he has a very, she did, very
Michelle.
just of her walking out with him. The groom faces charges of riot, harassment, and resisting arrest.
Michelle, it's obvious they all dressed up for that wedding. I was really impressed with the T-shirt and the members-only jacket there. Awful. I was thinking annulment. She goes and bails him out of prison. Great way to start, huh?
We should have an entire category on the show for, and yes, alcohol was involved in the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Tammy, what do you have for us?
Well, I have a hero. Yeah. It is Hades the Pit Bull. I know that name and the words pit bull make you think, oh, what's going on here? But Hades is the heroic dog who saved an Oregon boy from a deadly bee attack. The 8-year-old and his friends were in the forest when one kicked over a beehive, unleashing the swarm. The boy and his sister could not get away. Take a listen to what happened.
Hades saw me and came and she dragged me up to the grass and then stopped and let me crawl on her back and then took me to Mom.
I just heard a bunch of screaming. Then I saw my dog dragging my son up his pants.
Their mother, who does not want to be identified, says even in the hospital, doctors were still pulling bees out of their hair. And if it weren't for a little help from Hades.
Oh, a couple of these kids could have got really sick or died.
Yeah, I love how her kids are all over the news, but she doesn't want to be identified. But put my kids' faces on the TV. But that's a great dog. The dog got stung as well, but obviously got the care he needed. The little boy was stung about 25 times. So I think they're going to be pals for quite some time. Yeah.
I wonder if there's Benadryl for dogs.
Well, I think there probably is. You can actually give Benadryl to dogs. Not too much, but you can do it. So good job, Hades.
Make sure it's not grape flavored.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. What do you think about our picks for Hero or Zero of the Week? We want to know what you think, so be sure to leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Tammy Bruce joining me here in Los Angeles and Michelle Fields in the nation's capital. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.